Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Leonard. I've been always in my life. I've been a person who's tried to avoid modern technology. I never had a Facebook. I don't know anything about modern social media whatsoever. I don't have a cell phone. So now it's interesting for me that we hear modern cancel culture. Society is moving so fast and changing so fast, and people are being thrown off the wheel. Well, for me, and part of it was myself, and part of it was just kind of the person that I am. I've been canceled for 15 years. I've been in a state of exile, if you will, and that's allowed me to contemplate deeply about my situation. So I understand the feelings of people who've been canceled and the anger and frustration that people feel. And you work through it, and then you finally realize that being canceled isn't so bad. That the cancel culture might in fact be a good thing. And I'm going to debate this issue quite a bit. We're going to reach in and investigate this issue of being canceled. But I'm going to make the argument that at this point in my life, I think the cancel culture is for the benefit of people. And because it allows people to reflect and think about who they are without being influenced by modern society. So with that being said, here's a little bit about myself. When I was young, the psychiatrist didn't know what was wrong with me. And I was diagnosed eventually with Asperger's syndrome, which was a diagnosis that I rejected my entire life. I've always been somewhat of a rebel. The social psychologist told me that I didn't know how to, relate to people, in particular women. And this will be an issue that we discuss in great detail. And they saw me as an influence who could influence people to do bad things. There's always been this tension in me, because I've always been a rebel, but I've always believed in facing really dark emotions that are natural to the human psyche, because there's a lot of darkness in this world, and turning them into something positive. And I expressed these dark emotions that I didn't really understand what was going on in the world. I didn't understand social interaction and the flow of social interaction. I always wanted to pursue my own interests. And I felt a lot of anger and resentment because of that. And I expressed this through music. And I always pushed things to extremes. I always struggled with, moderation. And I made some very, very offensive, very dark music. And it was like, so I was in the underground hardcore metal scene. And I made music because I felt myself to be so punk rock that completely pushed away everybody in the scene as I made fun of everybody. And so the music was unbelievable, but nobody really got it and nobody really understood it. And that is the dilemma, perhaps, of being an artist. I came up with this album that I was very, very, very proud of. That was very, very dark. It was very, very offensive. But there was some force that was holding that album from coming out. And it was in a scenario where I was so close to achieving my goal. And every single week, there was something that came out. Somebody couldn't show up to band practice. Someone couldn't show up to the recording session, and then my producer here, Chris D'Amico, couldn't do it one week. And then so this went on for like 8 or 9 weeks, and I was so miserable. And I felt that some force was preventing me from putting out the CD. I was ready to smash my dad's statue of the Virgin Mary, and I decided to go to church. I sat in the Catholic Church. I started laughing out of nowhere. So I felt the presence of something outside myself. And I said something like, God, I was just, even though I didn't believe in God at the time, God, I was just joking. And I started laughing. And, it's like God understood my sense of humor and understood where I was going through. And it's very interesting because I've heard stories about mystics seeing the great white light. And they say that above all, the great white light has a sense of humor. So I felt God, firstly, as having a sense of humor. Somebody heard me laughing. I'm laughing uncontrollably, and they went to get the priest. And the priest came and said, well, everything happens for a reason. Why don't you come to church tomorrow? And so I decided to go to church. And I was Catholic when I was a kid, but I vaguely remember the rituals. So I'm going through this mass, and some of the memories of my childhood are coming back. And during the sign of peace, my father came over to me, gave me a big hug, and said, "Welcome home, son." And so my heavenly father was speaking to me through my earthly father. I'm the least emotional person in the world, but I broke down and I started crying. And I felt the love of God in what the Orthodox call the gift of tears. And I experienced that in every Mass. So and when I was confirmed in the Catholic Church, because I became a militant Catholic, because having such an experience of God makes one, for the first time, very, very militant in their faith. And now it's like I believe everything the church teaches. I'm going to church all the time, and I'm experiencing, I'm getting the gift of tears. And when I got confirmed, for instance, I cried like a baby. And this is new to me because I've repressed my emotions my entire life. And so it's interesting. So naturally, like St. Paul, who fell off the horse, for instance, I went from being an unbeliever to a believer, and I became very devoted, and I studied the Christian faith for, 10 years, and I stopped playing music. And so, but my faith life went through phases, went through the emotional phase, and then it went through the intellectual phase. And now I'm in the phase where I'm questioning basic tenets of the faith. And this is the process of discovery, and the mystics call going into the great cloud of unknowing. And where all fixed ideas of what God are disappear. And this is, and we'll talk about this in later episodes, but this is what liberalism as a whole is doing. It's making us question all these fixed ideas and making us go into the great unknowing, in a sense turning us all into mystics, which I think is a positive thing. So my faith has fluctuated, but since going to church, I've developed myself intellectually. I've read a lot of books. One thing I don't like about the modern world is how everything is specialized. So I read a general over a wide variety of fields, and one of the things that's key to my thought is how everything and every concept is connected. It's not just a bunch of separate parts like the reductionist materialist belief. I've tried to become a polymath, developing multiple skills. It's important to develop the intellectual skills. It's important to know, but it's also, intellectual people can be trapped in their own head and their own thoughts. So it is important also to be balanced with doing practical skills. So I learned how to farm. That's one thing that I got into. And another thing where my religion taught me is I started to read up about this New World Order, and I studied conspiracies for years and years and years, and reading about these conspiracies and how much we've been lied to and stuff created a reaction in me. It's like everything's so bad, everyone's lying to me, I have to separate myself from the world. What am I to do? Oh, first I have to naturally grow my own food. So I decided to go all out and started to create my own farm. And I read about a bunch of different farming techniques, and I came across permaculture, and I came across forest gardens, and the idea of making a food forest, where it's developed like a forest and there's different plants that are all edible. It's a very utopian, beautiful idea that I've been working on, and it doesn't necessarily, it needs a lot of work to apply to practical reality. But it was a project that I took on, and I kind of bit off more than I can chew. But my idea was to create the Garden of Eden in my own backyard. And this put me into conflict with my neighbors, because I live in a middle-class neighborhood. And so all the neighbors were upset by the aesthetic of it. And so this created a whole controversy. I brought in goats and chickens and animals. And so this controversy happened in the neighborhood, and they tried to change the laws, and I was in the newspaper, and I got my 15 minutes of fame. People from local Fox News saw my article in the newspaper. I got to go on TV and talk about, my thoughts and my developments of this farm. So I've been doing this farming thing for 5 to 6 years, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and, particularly my annual garden, the weeds took over and stuff. So, I've kind of lost interest in it, but suddenly good things started to happen. So my garden's starting to rebound with the grace of God. So, but gardening, it is an interest of mine now. Yeah, so I did all the study about the New World Order, and I realized eventually that you can't separate yourself from society. It's impossible. This is what everybody finds out. This is what someone like Henry David Thoreau in Walden, realized, that he can't, that all the people who've gone into the wilderness, for instance, up to Alaska, they eventually came back. So you can't avoid society, you can't run away, and this is my message to all these conservatives who are very, very upset about the state of the world, and rightfully so. I mean, there's a bunch of lies and manipulation that's going on, but you can't escape it. You have to adapt to the changes. And that's the thing that you realize. You're going to be forced to adapt to the changes. And it's important to keep the values that you have, but adapt them to the modern world. And this is what I'm trying to do. I've reflected a lot on these things. I've been by myself mostly, and interacting with books and ideas, and haven't been interacting with real people, because I have this desire for real communication, right? Not communication behind, like this, behind a screen, or through Facebook or through, but real human interaction, which modern society has kind of taken away. Everybody's just on their own computer doing their things, and they don't have interactions in the flesh. So I've tried to naturally avoid that. But the world is such now that we have to use technology to communicate with each other. So that's what my attempt is trying to do, is trying to talk about the lessons that I've learned in my life, and hopefully that these lessons will be able to help other people. And in turn, I want all of you to give me your ideas, and they can help me. And I realize that I can learn from anybody. I believe everybody has something to offer. We're all created in the image and likeness of God, and we all have unique skills. So that's what I hope this channel is, to explore multiple philosophical ideas, some practical things. I'm into weightlifting. I was a personal trainer for many years. Various issues about the church, about politics, about economics, about psychology, philosophy. I've studied a lot of things. So these ideas, I hope to explore through this channel. After studying my faith and stuff, in studying about the New World Order, for instance, I became more and more paranoid. I became more and more paranoid of everything around me. And I had a tragic situation that I faced that I'll talk about in detail some other time, that really burst the bubble. And it led me into the state of consciousness where now I believe that everybody was in on the conspiracy. My father, I thought I was some government experiment, and my father, my brother, and I went through this incredible experience. My soul left my body. My soul left my body. My mind left my body. And I experienced all these ideas in the external world, about, the oneness, I'll describe this, the oneness of everything. I felt that there was just, everybody was working together on the conspiracy, but the conspiracy, instead of being something evil, was working to my good. And this changed my thinking of things, but it was an amazing experience. I'll go through it in detail. The CIA does reports about this called the Gateway Experience, and you can look into this mystical experience that allows you to transcend space and time, communicate with people in transcendent realms, and which I've experienced this multiple times. Perhaps drugs like this, like LSD, can also do this, but the mystics and the monks of old have been, through meditation, have been able to also create these states. So the states are incredible, and they've taught me a lot about myself. So I've been in and out of these states, but they've changed my mind from a state, once again, that I still believe there is a conspiracy out there, absolutely. Okay, but now I believe that it's working for my benefit, working for my good. It's been a wonderful experience, and this relates to the book 1984, which I'll also discuss, in great detail on this channel. So I've had these mystical experiences, and now I'm trying to reconcile them with my thoughts, but I'm still learning and growing, taking on new fields and learning about things. And I want to learn about the world, and I realize that life is a mystery. It's not, everything doesn't need to be clear-cut and direct, which is what a lot of conservative people perhaps want. There is a mystery to life. There's a mystery about this New World Order, but it's a puzzle that we have to constantly solve, and the journey for it might be eternal and everlasting, because who really wants the journey to end? And that's where I'm going to leave it with this. But so this channel will discuss many issues, and I hope to have a lot of fun with this and learn a lot from you guys. And thank you for all you taking this time and listening to me. And you can send me an email, warfare_music@hotmail.com. So if you have any questions, just send me an email and let me know. And thank you for your time.